Welcome to Soul Growth Stories, where we uncover the profound journeys of individuals who turn their silent struggles into magnificent masterpieces. Imagine a small, dusty attic room, where the smell of turpentine hangs heavy in the air and vivid dreams are born. This is the story of Elias, a young man who decided to dedicate his entire life to capturing the world through paint. His hands were unsteady at first, and his early strokes were raw, lacking the refined grace of the masters he admired. Failure became his constant companion in those early days, as every attempt seemed to fall short of the vision in his mind. Rejection letters began to pile up on his desk, each one a polite but painful reminder that he was not ready yet. He would walk past the city's grand galleries in the rain, watching people admire art that felt light years away from him. Despite the doubts whispering in his ear, Elias made a silent vow to paint every single day, no matter the cost.
His eyes grew tired, but a fire burned within them, a relentless drive to bridge the gap between his hand and heart. He sacrificed comfort and stability, living on meager meals, just to afford the expensive tubes of oil paint and quality canvas. Winter came with a biting cold that seeped through the walls, but Elias kept his fingers moving to keep them from freezing. The attic slowly transformed into a labyrinth of colors, a testament to the hundreds of hours he poured into his craft. 3 years passed, and he finally noticed a subtle shift. His shadows were deeper, and his light began to feel real. He ventured outside to study nature, learning how the sunlight dances on leaves and how the wind shapes the moving clouds. Most people walked by without a second glance, but Elias was no longer painting for their approval. He painted for truth. 5 years of solitude had forged a discipline of steel, turning the act of painting into a daily ritual of survival. He began to experiment boldly, breaking the rules he had learned, allowing his emotions to explode onto the canvas without fear. His hands were now calloused and rough, but they moved with a fluidity and confidence that only time could ever bestow. Half a decade in, he sat amidst 500 paintings, feeling the crushing weight of silence and the absence of recognition. He saw the gray hairs appearing, but he washed his face, took a deep breath, and picked up the brush again. An old friend visited and stood in awe, finally seeing the hidden universe Elias had been building within these 4 walls. The sale of a single small painting brought tears to his eyes, not for the money, but for the first validation. He reinvested everything back into his art, buying better pigments that allowed him to capture the deep vibrancy of his dreams. By the 7th year, his unique voice had emerged, a distinct blend of melancholy and hope that was unmistakably his own. Fate intervened when a renowned art critic paused for coffee and found herself captivated by a painting hanging in the corner. She left a card, a small rectangle of paper that represented a crack in the door he had been pounding on. He did not rush. Instead, he painted with a calm intensity, producing his 800th and then his 900th work. Calls began to come in, but Elias remained grounded, knowing that the work on the canvas was the only thing that mattered. As the 10th year approached, he prepared a massive canvas for his 1000th painting, intended to be his magnum opus. He stood before the white void, closing his eyes to summon the emotions of a decade spent in shadows and light. The first stroke was struck with the confidence of a master, a release of 10 years of pent-up passion and skill. Day after day, the image emerged, a complex tapestry of human emotion that seemed to breathe and move on its own. He entered a state of flow, where time dissolved, and there was no separation between the artist, the brush, and the canvas. The dark hues represented his years of struggle, while the radiant lights symbolized the hope that had sustained him through it all. He stepped back, exhausted and covered in paint, gazing at the finished piece that captured the very essence of his soul. The scene shifts to the central gallery, where the massive painting now hangs under the warm glow of professional spotlights. A hush fell over the crowd as they gathered around, captivated by the raw power and honesty radiating from the canvas. Elias stood among them, wearing a suit but still bearing the faint stains of paint on his hands, a badge of honor. The critic approached him with a warm smile, shaking his hand and acknowledging the decade of unseen labor behind the success. He looked around and saw his earlier works, once rejected and hidden, now displayed as the stepping stones to this moment. A young student asked for the secret to his success, and Elias simply smiled, pointing to the calluses on his hands. In that moment, the memories of sleepless nights and cold winters flooded back, no longer painful, but precious and necessary. He realized that the true masterpiece was not just the painting on the wall, but the person he had become. He had finally bridged the gap, connecting his inner world with the hearts of strangers through the universal language of art. His signature in the corner was no longer a question mark. It was a bold declaration of existence and artistic survival. Stepping out onto the balcony, he breathed in the cool night air, feeling a profound sense of peace settle over him. He looked down at the city lights, remembering the small window of his attic where he had dreamed of this very night. The boy who started with nothing but a dream was now a man who had proven that persistence is the ultimate talent. He returned to the celebration, not as a lucky newcomer, but as a veteran who had earned every inch of his success. Each canvas in the room told a chapter of his story, a silent witness to the resilience of the human spirit. He saw a child staring at his work with wide eyes, and he knew the cycle of inspiration would continue forever. He knelt down and handed the child a small brush from his pocket, passing on the torch to the next generation. It was a small gesture, but it held the weight of a legacy, encouraging a new dream to take its flight. Elias smiled, realizing that his journey was never just about him. It was about showing others what is possible with faith. As the night ended and the gallery emptied, he stood alone once more. But this time, he was not lonely at all. He turned off the lights, leaving his masterpiece glowing in the dark, a beacon of perseverance for anyone who might see it. Walking home under the vast starlit sky, he felt ready for the next chapter, whatever challenges or joys it might bring. The journey of 1,000 paintings had ended, but the journey of the artist's soul was only just beginning to unfold. Every great achievement starts with the decision to try, and the courage to continue when the world gives you no applause. Thank you for watching Soul Growth Stories. Remember that your own masterpiece is waiting for you to pick up the brush.